Don't Shout at the Vegetables, Lessons in Sustainable Leadership and Human Growth, written and narrated by Max Kent.
Welcome everyone to the Global Business Insight podcast. In episode 7, inspired by Don't Shout at the Vegetables, we explore pruning without punishment. Why doing less intentionally is often the smartest move a leader can make. So let's hear out Max, what he has to say. Max, welcome back. And tell us, why do organizations resist pruning even when overloaded?
Hi Charlotte, thanks once again. Welcome to our listeners for the next episode. Delighted to be talking about Don't Shout at the Vegetables. It's just been wonderful seeing the continuing growth in the book, popularity, people coming back to me with all sorts of questions on it. We're going to keep going with the gardening methodology and analogies right throughout this podcast series because I think it's so resonant with business growth and that's why I wrote the book. So when we talk about pruning, to your first question there, what is pruning? Pruning is going through a plant and removing the bits that no longer service its growth anymore to help the overall plant grow. So in a business, pruning could be all sorts of different areas. It could be restructuring, it could be losing old projects that no longer service the growth, could be getting rid of actually customers that cause too much time without actually bringing much profit, and tying the customer services teams up in knots with the amount of queries they have to resolve. I've seen a lot of this stuff happen, and a lot of it is not what it seems. It's not about doing more, it's about doing the right thing. So what I see happening with this is organizations actually resist pruning because so much of their identity is tied to doing more. More products, more projects, more features, more markets, more sales, more customers. Saying no feels like shrinking, even when the current load is already unsustainable. And I think there's also a fear of political or reputational costs if something is efficiently ended. The amount of times I've said to people, let's segment our customer base and look at the ones that are causing us the most time, not bringing the most profit, and actually let's manage them out of the business. The amount of times that we've looked at that as organizations and seen that it wouldn't affect our profit and it would help our time, but the organization's been too scared to actually lose a customer, that's that fear. So old commitments quietly linger on and it just drains the energy from what actually matters in an organization. So that's what pruning means, and actually that's why many organizations just resist doing it when it could be the best thing they could actually do.
Fantastic answer. Max, we go right to the next question. How do legacy expectations distort present day performance?
Okay, yeah, this is again more of the same. Legacy expectations are those promises and habits and targets that were set in a different context but never actually revisited. I've worked for organizations where the leader, the CEO, used to be the top salesperson, but isn't anymore. However, the sales team is still operating in their image when that person probably was in startup mode and just got any contract in to keep the lights on. And the business has changed in terms of they don't need to do that anymore, but they're still acting in that way because they've never been told anything different and they've never really revisited any of those processes. So that those things might have made sense 3 restructures ago or under that different leadership team, but now they just become weight and inertia. Leaders who don't question those things inherit just a to-do list that's written for a different reality. Businesses stay in that startup mode long after they stop being a startup. Pruning starts with the courage to say, this actually no longer fits who we are now or where we're going. And those leaders that have the courage to make those changes and help the business evolve are the ones that really set themselves up for success.
That is really a nice way to summarize it. Um, Max, what are the emotional narratives that require pruning?
Again, these are these classic things where I think leaders get themselves into these roles where they feel so under pressure to perform constantly that they end up setting these processes in places that they never prune. They become emotional narratives that they take on board themselves. They never really lose those things, and it becomes to the detriment of their own mental health, actually. So,
Mhm.
not removing beliefs such as I must always be available, or if I say no to things, it makes me a difficult person to deal with, or my value in this organization is only measured in output or in sales performance or in uh, double digit growth. Actually, those stories that you tell yourselves just drive you to overwork and self-neglect. I've been there myself. I burn out before through exactly that, and that's why I had to write about it in the book, because I was guilty of that. um things to me, like having your email application on your on from your work email on your personal phone so that you're constantly notified. Get rid of it. Have it on your computer only, and make the conscious decision to not always be available. And when you do check these things, it's because you're making a conscious decision to do this. Otherwise, again, you're going to drive yourself into self-neglect and overwork. When you consciously make the decision to retire some of those emotional narratives that really aren't serving you anymore, you actually create that vacuum. You create the space for healthier narratives to fill the gap. So things like I'm most effective when I'm rested. Having a good sleep, having a good night's sleep where it's not interrupted, will make me more effective. Me setting boundaries and being clear about what I do and don't do and when I do it actually helps everyone around me. And leadership is about the right conditions, not being a martyr and burning yourself into the ground so that everyone else can see how hard you're working.
I couldn't agree more with that, Max, especially the whole uh, guidance advice that you have to just turn off your application on the phone, turn off the vibration, or maybe even putting your phone in sleep mode so you don't hear the Teams pings or whichever um, system you're using. But
Yeah.
it's just so important to be respectful to yourself, to the people around you, disturbing them with your constant emails. So yeah, I totally resonate with that. So Max, how does pruning create space for clarity and innovation?
So just like if a plant has got lots of overgrown leaves, and it's not growing many flowers or fruit, you would prune it back. You would remove the lower leaves so that the energy and the nutrients in that plant are directed to the fruit and the flowers, so that it produces more of what you want, and less energy is going to the bits that no longer serve the overall growth. Which is such a simple way of looking at it, but if you again apply that to leadership and business, that act of pruning, which in this case is getting rid of those things that no longer serve you, and having the time to review what is and isn't working, that frees up attention, it frees up time, frees up money. All those things would have been previously locked into those low impact activities. So creating a space where clarity and creativity and innovation can reappear is actually is actually not by working harder. It's by freeing up the time and taking away some of those things that no longer serve you, to give you the quality time when you have the right energy and the right time, not in the middle of the night, to actually suddenly have that capacity again to think and to experiment and to collaborate differently. If you don't prune, new ideas suffocate under the weight of old obligations. Just another thing I wanted to say, based on the point you said before about notifications and how this could be an act of pruning, is actually switching off notifications on your personal phone and switching off notifications on applications. The reason we do that, and the reason I really think strongly about this, is because A long time ago, someone said to me that even an amoeba, which is kind of the lowest cell form that we could break things down to, even an amoeba will respond to a stimulus. Now, a notification, a ping on your Outlook, the thing when it pings up, you've got an email in your bottom right corner, your notifications on your iPad are all stimulus that are prompting a response from you. So every time we are pinged and we respond to something, we're basically no better than a amoeba. Um, what we do is switch all those things off, and we make the conscious effort to check things and respond to them when we've made that decision. And we elevate our own levels of thinking as a result of that. So it's another way you can prune the things you're doing in your life by getting rid of some of those stimulus that are external to how we want to operate.
Fantastic answer. Max, why is pruning an act of protection and not harshness?
Well, framing pruning as protection changes the emotional tone on what you're doing. So you're not cutting things out for the sake of being harsh. You're protecting the health of the overall system and the people inside it, just like a gardener would prune a plant so that the overall plant doesn't exhaust itself. A leader prunes the work a team is doing so the team doesn't burn out. So the whole intention of this is caring for the overall structure, not punishment. So again, I think that analogy of pruning in terms of looking at a plant that's got dead leaves at the bottom of the plant and healthy fruit at the top, pruning would be removing those dead leaves because you don't want any more energy going to them. It's the same within business. Just remove the things that no longer serve you, and that's caring, not punishing anything for no longer being fit for purpose.
Great answer. And as we go into our last question of this episode, how can leaders communicate pruning without triggering fear?
I think when you communicate how you're going to prune, what you're going to change, what you're going to do to streamline an organization, and even things like saying to teams, we're going to try to optimize things or streamline things. If you say that in the wrong way, people who are working within a job role can get extremely upset because they don't want to be optimized. They don't want to be streamlined. They might actually be doing a very thorough job role that is what that role actually demands. So optimizing what they do would be seen as an affront. Pruning the organization so that they're not doing things that are not serving the organization, maybe legacy tasks, legacy projects or services that don't help the overall growth. That's a very different thing. So there's a way to communicate this. So telling the teams that we're stopping these projects, that we can focus on delivering the critical outcome without burning you all out, is a much better way to communicate it, because you're saying we understand the things that you're doing that we've asked you to do that we all know are actually pointless and not going to help you. We've been doing these things up until now because we've always done them. What we're saying as a team is we've reviewed the things that help us, the things that really matter. We want you to do more of that and less of the things that are just legacy tasks and legacy things that don't serve us anymore. We're acknowledging that effort, and we're acknowledging the things that went into things that are ending, and we're making clear that this is a strategic choice, not anything like a verdict on people's worth. So we're reducing that fear and building trust among the organization.
Fantastic. And to our listeners, as you go into your week, ask yourself what needs to be let go so something better can grow, right, Max? Because pruning isn't about loss, it's about protecting what matters most.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you to our listeners for being here. And with no further ado, see you next time.
Don't Shout at the Vegetables: Lessons in Sustainable Leadership and Human Growth. Written and narrated by Max Kent.